What is up, all you beautiful people? It is I, AkemiTCG, back here with a brand new video. Hand traps. Everybody's using them nowadays. A lot less people are using them because, you know, there's a lot less good hand traps. So what are the best hand traps you can use right now on December 2020 on this new format? I come up with a tier list, in my opinion, very subjective tier list of hand traps that are S tier, A tier, and below with my explanations. Hope you all enjoy. Welcome everyone, we are back here in the den with a comprehensive tier list for the December 2020 format onto January and onto February. And I think we're gonna get a next ban list in March, but it's December right now. It's before the New Year, so I just wanted to throw together, slap together a comprehensive tier list for pretty much every relevant hand trap. There's probably like one or two I'm missing here, like Chaos Hunter and whatnot, but I will talk about them throughout the video. If you want me to skip to a certain card, my timestamps are down below. The card my head is covering, because you know my head is abnormally huge. We got Ash Blossom on the left and then Effect Veiler on the bottom. So let's get into it. First off, Ash Blossom. This hits practically every single meta deck and also could potentially kill every rogue deck in the format. Is just really good. Every deck needs to search nowadays. Hard drawing into stuff is a thing of the past, so to speak, and just a lot of decks have these inherent summon mechanics or inherent search mechanics where they're like, oh, you can search for this card. You got Fire Formation Tanky. You got pretty much almost the whole Virtual World package, especially Lulu. Lulu gets to search. Dinos, you can search with Miss. You can search with, oh, special summoning it from the deck. Even, like, I'm just slowing up my words, but bottom line is Ash is a very, very crucial card and will hurt practically every deck. I recommend playing this as a 3-of in pretty much almost every deck you're playing, unless you're playing pure combo or like Mystic Mind Turbo. But S tier is Ash Blossom. That's what it is. DD Crow. So this card pretty much hurts every deck that does interactions with the graveyard. Good example is Zodiac Chakanine. You can target your Dryad in the graveyard, or target whatever you want in the graveyard, revive your Ramram, whatever your play is going to be. DD Crow it. If your opponent monster reborns, you can DD Crow it. What's really neat is not a hard once per turn, which is super cool. So we do take those. Eldritch, you can DD Crow the Eldritch monsters, especially when they target them in the graveyard. Also guys, the Manifestation, you can hit whatever they're about to grab back. So on and so forth. Even Miscellaneous Swords before they even banish it. So let's say like Miscellaneous Swords dump the miss into the graveyard, you can chain it, or on resolution you can just banish the miss so they never get the effect. So I think DD Crow, extremely good card. We take those. I'll put that on the A tier though, because it doesn't hurt every single deck. Not every deck is graveyard reliant. Yes, it's very good, but not every deck is graveyard reliant. So I just wanted to, you know, kind of drive that point home. Right. Next card is this Spooky Dogwood? Oh, it is Spooky Dogwood. I confuse the arts all the time. I confuse Ghost Belle and the Ghost Sister. So Spooky Dogwood, every time your opponent special summons for the duration of that turn, you can gain life points. Basically, it's really only good in time. And in my opinion, by the way, this is subjective. You guys can feel free to disagree. I don't really mind. But based on this current format, we are slowly shifting into more control. We're going to see less and less and less combo decks, especially, you know, with Call by the Graveyard 1 and pretty much all those crazy combo hits, which is Link Cross is probably the biggest combo hit for literally any combo deck. So I can expect combo to be played a lot less and control to be more in the format. So I feel like this card just isn't as good, but it can be clutch and you can win games in time because of it. So I'm gonna put this at C tier. And then worst case scenario, if your opponent like is like, oh, I don't want to special summon anymore, they can pass turn to you. That's it. Droll and Lockbird. So if you watched my previous video, I did discuss, or I didn't even discuss Droll and Lockbird. I'm not gonna lie, I completely forgot about that card. Two people in the comments were like, yo, what about Droll and Lockbird? This card single-handedly hits so many meta decks, probably besides Altergeist and Zoos, but however, it probably has a little bit more application because a lot of decks nowadays search more than once. So sometimes if they, let's say like you're playing against Dinos, right, and immediately they shotgun Pot of Extravagance because they have to play Extravagance first, then afterwards you can just pitch Droll, and then, you know, whatever happens, happens. But if you don't know what matchup you're playing against and they drop Pot of Extravagance, and you drop Droll and it's like, oh, I'm playing all three guys, so it doesn't matter, it just kind of sucks. But nonetheless, literally 90% of the top decks search more than once. So I'm going to put this at the A tier. A tier. So let me just move this over here. Move this down a little bit for you guys. Bam. Alright, next card. Battle Fader. I haven't seen Battle Fader news since, like, there was one format where Chicken Game was king, and Chicken Game actually made Exodia very viable. I was playing Exodia Turbo with Pseudospace and Hope for Escape, and it was legitimately a very consistent deck, and I'm not lying. It was 90% win rate, just because I think at the time Ash Blossom just came out and it was really expensive, so not everybody got their hands on them. But I digress. I just don't think Battle Fader is really a good choice. It doesn't really do anything for the game state. It's kind of, you do get an extra summon, but most of the time during main phase 2 they're gonna pop it, or they're just gonna ignore it completely. It doesn't really help you win the game, so I'm gonna put Battle Fader at tier D. Sorry guys, that's how it is. Psy-Frame Gamma. I personally don't like this card in the main. I know a lot of people will disagree, just because I don't like having it, or I don't like drawing into it later on in the game. That's just how it be. If I know I am going second, I will side this in. However, since I do not know if I'm going first or second, I keep this completely in the sideboard. But basically, Gamma is a 1-2 punch. It's like a Veiler that doesn't target, and it can hit any card, hand, field, graveyard, banish, as long as it's a monster effect, as long as it's activated monster effect. I'm like disappearing here with the green screen. If you guys are enjoying this video so far, make sure to drop a like, comment, and subscribe. Also, by the way, I do have a TCGPlayer affiliate link, so if you buy cards on TCGPlayer and you want to help support the channel, click on the link down below so you can buy your cards. You don't have to pay anything extra, but anything you buy on that purchase, if you clicked on that link, a little bit of it, just a small bit of it, goes back to yours truly. Alright, let's get back to the video. I'm back. My green screen was spaghetti. Anyways, Gamma, it's a really good card because it's a 1-2 punch. It does negate activations and destroys the card, and it's not once per turn as long as you have a extra driver somewhere in your hand, graveyard, or deck. So what's really neat about it, or probably my favorite aspect of it, is that sometimes your opponent has the has the Ash, but it just stays in your hand, so you can just use it again afterwards. But if you use Gamma and they ask you like a critical point, you're in a really bad spot. I'm so sorry, it just happens. But if you're playing Virtual World, and this is probably the best application for it, if you're playing Virtual World, Gamma is king. That's probably the best card in the deck, and for that reason alone, I will put it at the S tier. Just a very good card, especially if it's a hand trap that's suited for your own deck, because you're like, okay, activate one of the traps, or activate Chuchi, or activate the spell, and then they're like, okay, use Lulu, target my spell. I'm like, okay, negate with Makaba or negate with Ash, and then they're like, Gamma, and now on top of everything happening, they can go for an 8, provided they're not locked in. They can synchro up so they can use the other Gammas. Or you just feel really bad about yourself. Sometimes you just get Gamma. It happens, man. So that is why I put it at the S tier. Ghost Spell, a lot of cards do hit the graveyard, do activate in the graveyard, do something with the graveyard. Same idea with DD Crow. Ghost Spell has slightly more application, but DD Crow is not once per turn. But again, like I said before, Ghost Spell has more application, so I'm gonna put it at the A tier. Because Ghost Spell could theoretically hit spells and traps too, and DD Crow just banishes the monster. It doesn't actually negate anything either, so that's something to keep in mind. But I feel like those two do very similar things, but slightly different. Gnomaterial. I've personally never seen this card used in any way, shape, or form, at least in my locals, or at least in my experience. In retrospect, I feel like it could be a really good card if the Like they're normal summoning Alistair and you just Gnomaterial and they can't go into Almirage and they're like, oh, that's awkward. But however, since I personally don't see much application and haven't personally seen it being used, I just have to put it in the C tier. That's just how it is. I'm sorry guys. Gorz. Gorz is the next one. I haven't seen Gorz played in years. Literally years. Except for this, we had a Lightsworn player at our locals, and he was playing literally old Lightsworns, like without Minerva, okay? Without the Exceed Minerva. And he just dropped the Gorz, and I'm like, in 2020? It's just too tricky now that controlling no card is rough. I mean, yes, you can play a ton of hand traps, but controlling no card is a rough requirement. And also nowadays, we have a lot of cards that are just shut up, like straight up negate, and can negate during damage step because they negate activations and not effects. So Gorz just simply isn't a good card anymore because this game isn't about attacking anymore, it's all about interruption. And that's just how the meta has just progressed. We're not about like, oh, your monster has bigger attack, I can run you over. Not simple game states anymore, it's more like complicated game states where like, oh, I have to deal with this Trident, I have to deal with this Zeus, or I have to deal with Haquero and all these back row that opponent has. Whereas back in the day, like I'm talking about way back in the day, sometimes if you just had the highest attack monster, you just won because a lot of the traps were simply at 1. And for example, like Bottomless was at 1, Torrential was at 1, all the crazy traps were at 1, and you couldn't do anything about Gorz. It was just a good card back in the day, but nowadays, not so great, unfortunately. Next card, Honest. I still like this card a lot. If you play any sort of Kaiju Turbo where you summon Jizukuru and then Psychic Fervor, one of my buddies at my locals, probably back in like January, February, he came in, right, and he played like Victory Viper, 3 copies of Honest, Psychic Fervor, and a whole bunch of Kaijus. And all he did was just summon Kaiju your opponent's monster, summon Victory Viper, and then you special summon your own Kaiju because your opponent has a Kaiju. Attack with both Psychic Fervor, pay life points equal to your monster's attack, and then have your monster gain that much attack. So he made his guy 6600, and then he would drop like an Honest, or he would use Victory Viper to generate a token with the same amount of attack and then attack again. It was OTK City, and it was very scary just attacking to his cards too. And so I feel like Honest can't be D tier, but as of right now, I think it's C tier. Because I feel like the best application for Honest would be OTK. Some kind of OTK, some way, shape, or form. But I feel like instead of Honest, I would rather have cards like, you know, Ash, Gamma, pretty much any of these cards above instead of just Honest. So Imperm right now, Imperm still really good. It's not S tier anymore just because, you know, Virtual World, and a lot of cards is non-targeting, so I just have to put it at A tier. This is how it is. It's a good card. Like, I will never in any way, shape, or form say Imperm is a bad card, but for this particular format, it's just not so great. For a combo-oriented format like last format, where people were running on Infernobles, the Link Cross shenanigans and everything, Imperm was SSS plus tier. But as of right now, moving towards more control, and also, especially since Virtual World is so cheap, and Imperm practically does almost nothing to it besides like the like Cloud Castle effect, and you can just Imperm that, I guess. That's the best case scenario. But, or even if they summon VFD standby phase, you play Imperm. Some people kind of cheat around Imperm by waiting until you summon a monster and then activating VFD's effect, but I digress. Artifact Lancea, probably one of the better cards in this format. Hits Invoked, hits Eldritch, hits Dinos, hits Virtual World too. I like completely forgot, I just started there. Hits Virtual World. It's good. This card is good, but since you only use it during your opponent's turn, it does kind of suck, just in case the random you're playing against the random Orcus player, you know, like Babel, and you're like, oh, I can only use Lancea on my opponent's turn. What can you do, right? What can you do? Oh, D-Shifter and Nibiru are on here. Guys, D-Shifter and Nibiru. I'll talk about those cards at the end, right? just for you guys. At the end, I will talk about each of the Nibiru. Timestamps at the bottom. Skull Meister, pretty much anything affecting the graveyard, I would put way up in A tier. So that's just how it be. Ghost Ogre. Alright, so I just gotta think about this one. So Ghost Ogre. Okay, hits the Chuchi. Hits the... Actually... Oh yeah, hits the VFD. I actually haven't thought about Ghost Ogre this far, I'm gonna be honest here. Hits the VFD. Actually, it's not a bad card. Yeah, I'll put it in A tier. This card's good. Spot Destruction is good. I know it doesn't negate unless it's considered for like a face-up continuous spell, field spell, or a continuous trap card that already is face-up on the field and it has a second activated effect. So I feel like it's really, really good against the Retro World, especially if they play Chuchi and also gets rid of the VFD. So that's why I put it at the A tier. Fantastical. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Thanos makes me very sad. Thanos was a very good card. Well, we call Fantastical Thanos, by the way, because in the previous formats, everybody links up. Everybody and then mom links them, and now with Virtual World, now with Daytrons, you don't see it as much anymore in the core decks. And basically, Fantastical really only shines if there is a deck that's playing all link summon. Even Zodiacs don't even have to link summon. So I just put it, I'm so sorry, Fantastical. I know it lets you fix your hand, but unfortunately it's at C tier now. When this card just came out, Master Rule 4, SSS triple S plus tier. But now Fantastical is just simply not as good. It's seeing a lot less play. It's just not a good card anymore. It just sucks. I know. He looks so cool too, but it's unfortunate. So with Scarecrow, the same reason for Battle Fader. Except it activates in your hand, and well, both of them activate in the hand. This one goes to the graveyard instead, so they can call by it. So that's even worse. Put that on D tier. So Effect Filler. Effect Filler is basically a notch below Infinite Impermanence. The problem is, again, only during your opponent's main phase. Not even the opponent's turn. The opponent's main phase. It was good, last format with Control, but nowadays, just simply not as good anymore. So it's just unfortunate. Electric Virus, I just haven't seen this card being used, so I'm gonna put that in D tier. Ghost Reaper. Okay. Ghost Reaper. This card is very interesting. You can shut off your opponent's VFD, but however, keep in mind that they can recycle that VFD back into the extra deck with their I don't remember which Virtual World they all sound. This is coming from Asian too, so I'm not trying to be. Alright, I digress. Basically, Ghost Reaper can be good if used against the right decks. However, the fact that Virtual World can just shuffle back their VFD, or Zeus can just shuffle back. Actually, there's no way to shuffle back their Zeus, so it kills Zeus. But you have to consider, you have to take up an extra deck slot, and you have to play 3 of these in the sideboard, especially since you want to see it. And after turn 1, it's just not as good. I would have to put it probably in the B tier. It has more application than these 8 cards here, but it's just how it is. So this is a C card. I don't remember which C card it does, but all it does is if your opponent normal summons or special summons a monster, you special summon this card from your hand. They cannot fusion, link, synchro, or exceed unless they use this card as material. It's a level 6. That kills it. If it was a level 5, or like an awkward number like level 7, that'd be sick. But this card was better during the beginning of Master Rule 4, where they were just link climbing with like the Goki stuff. However, nowadays, if they normal summon a monster, and you special summon this card, I don't think it's Retaliating C. Your opponent can just link up into Nightmare Phoenix because that's 2 monsters with different names, and then just keep going. So it's just really, really a bad card. That's just how it be. Alright, so now I want to talk about 2 extra cards. If you watch the timestamp, right? 2 extra cards I want to talk about are Nibiru and D-Shifter. So with Nibiru, I'll talk about Nibiru first. We're going towards a more control-oriented format. Sometimes with Virtual Worlds, you can hit them with the Nibiru if they don't go for Bamboozling Gossip Shadow. However, it's just tricky now because without Link Cross, it's kind of harder to Nibiru opponents. But one can also argue that because there's no Link Cross, if you're still playing combo, it's a lot easier to get Nibiru because it's really hard to make Herald under 5 summons, or 5 summons or under. So I would put Nibiru in just B tier because this is not as much application. Next is Dimensional Shifter. Alright, Dimensional Shifter is an extraordinarily good card and shuts down pretty much almost every deck besides probably Datrons. Because they ritual summon, but I'm not sure if they have interaction with the graveyard. I could be wrong about that. However, the big caveat is pretty much after turn 1 it's kind of useless. So I would put it at the A tier. I couldn't put it at S tier. If it didn't have the restriction that like, oh, you have to have no cards in the graveyard. Let's say like if the restriction was you have to have no monsters in the graveyard, it would be in the S tier. I firmly believe there should be a restriction on it because that card is way too oppressive. It's literally a Macrocosmos for 2 turns. And there has to be some sort of restriction on it. If there wasn't a restriction on it, everybody would be playing 3 Dimension Shifters in the main deck. I guarantee you that's how good it would be. Like, Ash Blossoms is good because there's no restriction on it besides you can only use it once per turn. And Gammas is good because you can use it any point in time as long as you control no monsters. And it works for monsters in the graveyard, monsters in the hand, monsters in the field. Just you can. I don't know if this is even possible. Actually, no. I was gonna say something really stupid. I'm not gonna say it. Anyways, agree or disagree? Let me know down below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a like, comment, subscribe, and please let me know if you want me to do any more tier lists. And if you do want me to see more tier lists, please let me know what you want to see. I am AkemiTCG. I will see you guys in the next one. Alright, bye guys.
The world ends now.